This is a rocket, but I'm sure most of you already knew that. To be exact, this is the Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, or ICBM for short. Today's video is going to be a deep dive into the build, design, and launch of this rocket.
When you're building anything, you have to start with the end in mind. So with rockets, you have to set a goal. Do you want your rocket to go high, fast, or collect data? For ICBM, we wanted our goal to be height, so we wanted to go at least 1,500 feet. To do this, we used a bigger motor, and we made it smaller, lighter, and more aerodynamic.
If you want to see me do a deep dive into how to build a model rocket, put yes in the comments.
Okay, so one of the easiest ways to attach a fin to a rocket is just gluing it directly to the airframe. But that isn't very efficient. It isn't very strong. So in high-powered rocketry, what we do is called through-the-wall fins, which would be, you have the inner tube, and then you have the forward centering ring, the rear centering ring, and the engine mount. The engine mount is to stop it from sliding back and forth, the motor from sliding back and forth. Anyways, I combined all three of those into this one 3D print. And so the motor tube, once it's cut, will go inside here like this. And then there's these little slits right here. There's these little slits in it, which is where the fins will go. And the fins have these little tabs, which will just go right in here, and it makes a very strong connection, because then when we cut slits in the airframe, and you slide it together like this, and then you can have internal fillets and external fillets, and it'll be a very, very strong connection. I cut the fin slots on the body tube, and then we started working on the inner assembly. I cut the motor tube and then slid it inside the inner assembly to see if it was the right length. But then I couldn't get it back out. So technically it's not glued in, but it's glued to the fins, so it's not going anywhere. After that, we sanded down the fin tabs so that they weren't quite as tall and they would actually fit inside here. And then I hot glued them in. For the nose cone, we decided to 3D print it, because the nice thing about 3D printers is that you can make whatever you want, whenever you want it. After we glued the inner assembly into the airframe, we did external fillets, glued on the launch lugs, and glued on the shock cording. After that, we finished the nose cone and added decals. Since the rocket was done, we just had to find the right day to launch it, so we went out to the launch site. Now, we weren't able to get to a launch site that was big enough to launch an F-class rocket at. So, I had to print an adapter that would let us launch the rocket with a D-class motor. At the launch site, we packed the D-class motor with the adapter, the Etsy's altimeter, and an Etsy's camera.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take a look!
Now, the rocket's apogee was only about 220 feet, which is completely horrible compared to the rest of our rockets, but you have to take into consideration that this was meant for an F-class motor and not a D-class motor, meaning that I had to make everything a lot stronger, which increased the weight. In the aftermath of the launch, you can see that the rocket didn't go very high or very straight, and that's because when I designed it, I originally designed it for using an F-class motor. And an F-class motor would have made the rocket go exponentially faster than the D did. The way that fins work is the more surface area you have and the faster the fin is moving, the more pressure there will be. And so, when I designed the fins, I designed them to be as small as possible to optimize the weight and the aerodynamics of the rocket. But, since we downgraded to a D, which goes slower, it reduced the stability of the rocket, therefore making it not a straight flight. Now, you may have also noticed that I said that we put a camera inside the rocket, which we did. And the reason you didn't see any footage from it is because it kind of died on the launch pad before we could actually launch. The last problem with this rocket is that we didn't really use the world's greatest parachute, and so when the ejection charge fired, it kind of ripped itself apart. Luckily, the rocket was light enough and it didn't go high enough for it to damage itself on impact, meaning it was in a reflyable condition. Overall, I learned a lot from this rocket build. I learned what to do and what not to do. Next time, I want to make another F-class rocket with a separate payload tube to hold more electronics so that I can collect more data, as well as a better, possibly homemade, parachute. That way it doesn't actually rip apart. Don't forget to comment down below to tell me what types of rocket projects you want to see in the future, as well as any other types of projects you want to see. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.